County Board of Supervisors organizational meeting. If everyone will stand, the first item is pledge allegiance to the flag, and please remain standing. That will be followed by a brief moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to start out by welcoming everyone to the organizational meeting for the 2022-2024 term. I would ask everyone in the audience to please mute your cell phone or put it on vibrate so as not to disrupt the meeting. First item of business is to administer the oath of office to the supervisors who are present. And those of you on WebEx, I will ask you to stand as well and participate along with us. If everyone would stand, please, and raise your right hand. One moment. If you will repeat after me, please, and when I say state your name, state your name. Don't say state your name. I state your name.
I, Peter Hansen,
Having been elected to the office of Marathon County Board Supervisor,
having been elected to the office of Marathon County Supervisor,
do swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States
do swear or affirm that I will
support the
Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and will faithfully discharge the duties
and will faithfully discharge the duties
of said office to the best of my ability.
of said office
to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you. If you would all have a seat and sign your oath of office, please.
It's with Bruce Lamont. I was on mute, but I swore allegiance.
Yeah, it's still up there. Thank you. Supervisor Krause, Tasha will get yours for you. Supervisor Niemeyer will get yours to you as well. There are a couple seats open up here. There's one here. So any seat you like is fine. The next item is the reading of the notice. The organizational meeting of the Marathon County Board of Supervisors, composed of 38 members, will convene at the Marathon County Courthouse, Assembly Room 500 Forest Street, Wausau, on Tuesday, April 19th at 7 p.m., and the agenda was duly signed and posted. Now we will proceed to roll call. When I call your name, please indicate that you are here. Arstead.
Here.
Baker.
Here.
Boots.
Here.
Book.
Here.
Covelli.
Here.
Dickinson.
Here.
Drabeck.
Here.
Gibbs.
Here.
Gisselman.
Here.
Gonering.
Here.
Hanson.
Here.
Hart.
Here.
Hardinger.
Here.
Krause.
Here.
Lamont.
Here.
Longenhan.
Here.
Lemmer.
Here.
Marshall.
Here.
Mask.
Here.
McEwen.
Here.
Morash.
Here.
Niemeyer.
Here.
Oberbeck.
Here.
Opel. Ritter.
Here.
Robinson.
Here.
Rosenberg.
Here.
Seafelt.
Here.
Stoibert.
Here.
Sherfinsky.
Here.
Sundelsky.
Here.
Straub.
Here.
Ungerer.
Here.
Van Cray.
Here.
Vensky.
Here.
Wilhelm.
Here.
Zhang.
Here.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And now I will recognize Corp Counsel Mike Purner. He has some comments to make.
I just wanted to make the board aware, there was a recount that was performed for Marathon County Board District 11 Supervisor. The recount was completed yesterday, and the vote tally didn't change as a result of the recount. Pursuant to 9.01 sub 6A of the Wisconsin statutes, the non-prevailing candidate in a recount has 5 days from the completion of a recount to appeal that decision and the tally of the recount to the circuit court. As the recount was completed yesterday, the 5-day period actually ends on Monday, April 25th. Under Wisconsin Statute 760 sub 6, in the event a recount is requested, the county clerk cannot certify the election or issue a certificate of election until the time allowed for filing an appeal of the recount has run, or until formal notice is received that an appeal isn't being pursued. So at this time, the District 11 supervisor cannot be sworn in until that certificate of election can lawfully be issued. So for tonight's meeting, since we haven't received a notice that an appeal isn't being pursued, the District 11 supervisor won't be seated for tonight's meeting. I did consult, because this is a rather odd, unique set of circumstances, I did consult with General Counsel for the Wisconsin Counties Association, as well as corporation counsels from 2 counties that had dealt with this fact pattern in the past, and both agreed with that analysis. So I just wanted to make the board aware of that piece before we moved on. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item of business is the election for County Board Chair. So at this time, I will formally open the floor for nominations for the position of County Board Chairperson. Historically, nominations of individual supervisors have been made by motion and second. The moving supervisor, the seconding supervisor, and other supporting supervisors are allowed to make statements of support regarding the nominee's candidacy. If you intend to make such a statement, I ask that you please be recognized by the chair. The board's rules relative to decorum of comments will be enforced during the nomination process. I now open the floor to nominations. Supervisor Seefeld.
Yeah, I make a motion to nominate Kurt Gibbs.
Is there a second? Supervisor Jean?
Second.
Supervisor Boots with a second?
Can I make a comment, please?
May I ask who is speaking?
Supervisor Boots?
Oh, I thought it came from the WebEx. I'm sorry.
Sneaky.
Supervisor Boots, you are recognized. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Gibb has been chairman of this board for 8 years, most of this time while running his accounting business. Supervisor Gibb exhibits the kind of work ethic and professionalism that one wishes were characteristic of all public servants. To find such constant striving to improve policy in a part-time board member is a rarity, especially considering there are virtually no personal rewards for doing so. The reality is Supervisor Gibbs enjoys serving this county. I would ask this new board to consider voting for Supervisor Gibbs for the following reason. He is fair. In this politically charged environment, it is important that the chair plays a neutral role as the board's leader. If he is elected chair, I assure you that your voice will be heard. He has the experience needed to do the job as spelled out. This is a very complex board with many moving parts. It requires a chair who is both experienced and has the knowledge of our county's governance process. He is a great resource for this county, serving both on the WCA and the NACO board. These are non-paid positions that Supervisor Gibb volunteers for to make sure this county is up to speed with state and national trends, spending countless hours in meetings and trainings to make sure we are poised to meet upcoming challenges. In conclusion, Supervisor Gibbs has the initiative and the dedication this job requires. I have no doubt that if elected, he will continue to lead the board forward through good and bad times, facing challenges they come and making sure all 38 supervisors have the resources they need to make informed, well thought out decisions for this company or for this county. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other comments? Supervisor Van Cray.
Thank you, Chair Clerk. I'd also like to second the nomination for Supervisor Gibbs as chair. Supervisor Boots had great things to say, and echoes my thoughts, so I'm going to try to be brief. I would like to share why I'll be supporting Supervisor Gibbs for chair from the perspective of a newer member of this body, since the majority of this room is a newer member of this body serving less than 3 terms. I've only spent 1 term with Chair Gibbs, but he has led us through one of the most challenging, if not the most challenging terms that this board has probably seen. He led us with reason, thoughtfulness, patience, and hard work, which is what we need as we move towards our next term of recovery and growth as a county. He is incredibly hardworking, and I know that all returning supervisors have experienced this, but for new supervisors, he is always available. I have talked to him early in the morning, and he's returned my calls so late that I have already been in bed. And that's okay with me. I appreciate him getting back to me. And as a new supervisor, you're going to have many questions and inexperience on this board, and it is so important that we have somebody as accessible and experienced as Chair Gibbs to help guide us through. And lastly, I'm going to share just a short story that a former employee once said about Chair Gibbs, and he doesn't work here anymore, so hopefully he doesn't mind that I share this. It's our former Deputy Administrator, Jason. He was here for a short time, but he has worked with other municipalities and counties in the state, and he once said that Chair Gibbs was the hardest working chair he had ever encountered, and we had no idea how lucky we were to have him. So after working with him for the last term, I see how lucky we are, and that, above all, is why I will be supporting Kurt Gibbs for another term as chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Zhang.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I just want to also express my support behind Supervisor Gibbs for the chairmanship as well too. Supervisor Gibbs has been a well-known individual, not only in our local community here, but also statewide with every county supervisor that I've spoken with. All they said was great things about Supervisor Gibbs. I think one of the things that as a supervisor here we need to know is that we need to have a chair that would be able to protect the rights of all speakers, of all supervisors, and I can definitely see that with Supervisor Gibbs. I think as Supervisor Van Crey said, we are very fortunate to have him as a leader and as an asset to our community here. And being the chairman sometimes requires you to work 40 to 50 hours a week, if not more, and Supervisor Gibbs has definitely done that in the past, so I will be supporting him for the chairmanship as well.
Thank you. Any other comments regarding the nomination for Supervisor Gibbs? Okay. Are there any other nominations for chair? Supervisor Baker. It's already on. You should just be able to speak.
I'm nominating Chris Dickinson for chair.
Is there a second? Supervisor Morash? Any comments? Supervisor Dickinson?
I appreciate that, but I will decline the nomination.
Any other nominations for the position of County Board Chair? Supervisor Hardinger?
I'd like to nominate Supervisor David Baker.
Thank you. Any comments? Seeing none, any other nominations for the position of County Board Chair? All right, thank you. I will allow each candidate to speak to the board. And in the interest of fairness, we will go in alphabetical order. So Supervisor Baker, you have the floor. Does he need to speak from his? Oh.
voters have spoken and created what is perhaps historic change on the Marathon County Board. Sorry. The voters have spoken and have created what is perhaps historic change on the Marathon County Board. I spoke to between 1,000 and 2,000 voters in 2021. Our new supervisors have knocked on probably 5,000 to 10,000 doors and talked to thousands of voters. What lessons can we learn from these? Number one, we need to focus on the county's business. Number two, protect and defend the constitutional rights of our citizens. And number three, smaller, less intrusive government. I can say with confidence that these are the issues that the voters care about, because these are the issues that we campaigned on. Of course, everyone's definition of what's a county business is a little bit different. These are some of the items that we include: roads, bridges, economic development, taxes and budgets, sheriff's department, jail, court system, public health, north central healthcare, zoning, parks, forest, water resources, and broadband. No great shock. It's basically the same issues that are on our standing committees. These are what we think is not the county's business. Presentation to the board by Katie Ham, a partisan, nonpartisan resolution to change the redistricting method, promoting critical race theory, advocating for social agendas. There's other things that not just the left that we think isn't the county business. We wouldn't support a resolution to overturn Roe versus Wade that has nothing to do with the county. We wouldn't overturn a resolution to decertify the 2020 election. When we look back at last term, I was asked as I was campaigning what I would do to make the board nonpartisan. And the implication was that our candidates would make the board partisan. As part of our effort to look at the board last term, we looked at all the votes from all supervisors, every vote that was a roll call vote, and there were no partisan agenda that were not brought by the left. So as I called different supervisors, it didn't take long to find that there was a definite campaign to prevent me from being elected chair. So made my presentation quite simple because I heard the same questions over and over and over again. So is it a good idea for a new supervisor to be chair? Probably not. As you could tell, I wasn't my first choice for chair. But I'm also not a typical new supervisor. I spent more than 500 hours in the last 12 months studying the board, learning the board rules, Wisconsin state statutes, attending rules review, other committee meetings. I think I missed 2 rules review meetings, and recruiting and training supervisor candidates. I am perhaps more familiar with the new board than any other supervisor. It's because we have so many new people that I have worked with. And it's not unusual for current supervisors to come to me for advice and information about rules and procedures. I don't say this for any other purpose than just to point out that, I have studied the board. I know quite a lot about the board. I'm not comparing myself to what Gibbs knows in any stretch. But I'm also believe that I'm above what I would be if I had actually served last term. So my qualifications and experience from private industry, I have 35 years of running private businesses, 29 years in Marathon County, focusing on engineering, process development, but I've also been responsible for operations, HR, finance, sales, and marketing. I have a BSME from UW-Platteville and an MBA from the University of Chicago. For those of you not familiar with the University of Chicago, it just got, again, the top rank from the U.S. News for business schools, and it's got more Nobel Prize winners than all but 5 universities throughout the world. I'm experienced working with unit business managers, division managers, and executive level customers at large multinational customers from 20,000 to 90,000 employees, as well as many medium and small companies. My experience includes turning around a company, taking it from 25% loss to 5% profit. And that this experience is particularly relevant because it involved changing the culture of an organization that wished I wasn't there. So next question that people asked, do you have time to do the job? Yes, I do. I will focus on running the board and carrying out the chair's responsibilities in an efficient and effective manner. I expect and hope to be able to do the job in no more than 20 hours a week, but I will do what it takes to do a good job. I will be respectful of your time, and I ask that you be respectful of mine. One of the things that we had planned for tonight was we were going to put an advisement committee amendment into the rules discussion. I talked to Chair Gibbs yesterday, and he was quite against that, and we basically would have to take action tonight, which could not put on the agenda. So we're going to pull that from the meeting. That will save like 45 to 60 minutes. And we're also pulling a proposed amendment to the Rule 6M, which is about 15 to 30-minute meeting time reduction. So, you know, we're not going to waste your time with that because we can't do anything with it. So that's an hour and a half off of the meeting time tonight. If you look at the orientation on Wednesday, that was 5 hours of our time. We didn't get through the department overviews and budgets, one of the most important parts for me, and we had to come back and do our laptops again. So I think that's an example of some time that we could save quite a bit of time if with proper organization. Next question is, the rumors are going around that I'm not going to be willing to carry out the tasks in the county board chairperson's guidelines and expectations. Not sure where that came from because I didn't say that, but I've heard that. So am I willing to carry out those tasks? Yes, I am. I believe that the board and the executive committee should spend time thinking about the future of the chair's roles and responsibilities. But as part of the nomination, I'm accepting the responsibilities outlined in the current guidelines and expectations document. Right now, the role of the chairman is such that there are no more than 2 people on this board that are willing to do that role for the amount of work that's required. And, well, 3, counting me. And I think that needs to be addressed, but that's an issue for another day, not for today. In addition to the guidelines and expectations that are on there now, I think that it should be more than just a list of tasks. I believe it should include goals for the new term, set by the new executive committee and approved by the new board. And if elected chair, I will lead the executive committee and the board in development of these goals. So just to give you an idea of the types of things that might be included in those goals, these are suggestions from our newly elected supervisors of things that we would like to examine and think about in the upcoming term. Is it feasible to eliminate the will tax, and how would that impact the county? Should the county develop a new policy regarding TID district approval, including approval for extensions? How do we ensure that we protect our citizens' constitutional rights to liberty, due process, and freedom from taking, especially in regards to the health department? What is the best and proper use of ARPA funding? I didn't make this question up. This was asked to me, so what did Chair Gibbs do that was so bad that he needed to be replaced? And I guess my short answer is he didn't keep the focus of the board on the county's business. The board was focused on redistricting resolution, no place for hate, community for all resolution, and a community disease ordinance that would have given police powers to quarantine guards employed by the health department. At the same time as the state was forcing our businesses to shut down, causing many to fail, and restricting the liberty of our citizens, our county board lost its focus. Now that the board has been transformed, do we still need a new chair? The chair is responsible for committee and leadership assignments and for setting agenda and providing leadership. If we want to truly change the board, we need to change the chair. If you were happy with the performance and direction of the board over the last 2 years, you should vote for Gibbs. If you agree with the voters that we need a change, please consider voting for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Gibbs, you have the floor.
Well, thank you, Madam Clerk and Acting Chair. First, let me say to each and every one of you, thank you for your willingness to serve the citizens of Marathon County. Let me tell you just a little bit about myself. Service has always been a huge part of my life. 6 years in the Air Force, 3 years in the Wisconsin Army National Guard, 19 years as a volunteer firefighter, 6 years as a first responder, and most recently, 16 years on this county board. Our vision is to be the healthiest, safest, and most prosperous county in Wisconsin. It's written on the wall. One of the things that I'm very proud of is that these words on the wall were developed by Marathon County Board Supervisors. Each one of you have ideas on how to achieve and get us closer to that goal. It is our role as a board to continue to work for that vision. And I believe it is the chairperson's job to develop a plan to achieve that goal, but to facilitate the board's work in developing that plan together. My opponent has brought up many things that he and I disagree on. I do not believe that it is wise in our time to debate them tonight. Having served as the chair of the board for the past 8 years, I would like to take this opportunity to let you know a little bit more on how I view the role of the board chair. The role of the board chair is to facilitate the will of this board, not their own personal views. It's the chair's responsibility to ensure that all the board members have equal access to speak, equal opportunity to bring their ideas forward, to be heard and respected for their opinions, and yet, if we disagree, it is to be done so respectfully and with decorum. Our board rules should not result in ever diminishing or impeding these basic foundations. You will see my tenure as chair, the committee appointments were consistent with the requests of the supervisors. I also appointed new supervisors to be vice chairpersons on various committees, allowing them to grow in knowledge and leadership. This provides for a stronger government. I'm not going to make a lot of promises to you other than I will and do my very best to carry out the will of this board. We do not execute our power as individuals, but as a collective body. That is the hallmark of representative democracy. The reality, nobody knows what challenges will face us over the next 2 years. I will cite just a few examples that I have seen in my term as chair. Within the very first 24 hours of being elected chair, the first time, we had a major fire in Marathon County in our highway department over on Highway 97. And that destroyed the building and destroyed all of our road equipment that we use for plowing roads. Yet, we had a snowstorm expected to happen within the week. We had to make arrangements. We did. We made arrangements with neighboring counties to assist us in getting the roads continued plowed. Not to speak of the pandemic that happened 2 years ago and all of the challenges that that brought. There also was a challenge that was with one of our neighboring communities, that being Broco. People seem to forget Broco was on the verge of bankruptcy. The county facilitated discussions along with the two towns, and there was a solution resolved. When the unpredictable happens, I believe you can count upon, I can be counted upon to do what is needed to support the work of the board. I spend an average of 20 to 25 hours a week, many times more in this office, fielding calls from citizens, meeting with county staff, assisting other supervisors, preparing for committee meetings, performing other work to affect the will of the board. Those of you who have stopped by my office know that I have an open door policy. I welcome any supervisor to meet with me to discuss issues facing them and their constituents. I will treat each issue fairly and objectively. A chairman must have a solid understanding of the complexities of Marathon County in both the metro and the rural areas. In the past, there's been animosity between the rural and the metro areas. I'm proud to say that through building meaningful relationships through the county and facilitating board discussions, we've been able to move past that with my leadership. Everyone must look at what's in the best interest of Marathon County as a whole. Marathon County has 24 departments, various boards, commissions, committees, task force. The chair must understand the opportunities and the challenges of each of these departments as they face the challenges delivering services to the citizens of Marathon County. This board has valued its involvement in two organizations that advocate on behalf of counties. Those two organizations are the Wisconsin Counties Association and the National Association of Counties. To illustrate the value of attending WCA meetings and events 5 years ago in La Crosse in the annual convention, we were made aware of an opportunity to be involved in an opioid litigation that was brought forward by the Wisconsin Counties Association. Because of that involvement, Marathon County is and will be receiving in excess of $1 million to help combat the opioid crisis that faces the citizens of Marathon County in the very near future. There's also 2 additional portions of that litigation that are not completed yet. The National Association of Counties, through their advocacy, has resulted in the first and only time that there's been a direct payment to all 3,069 counties in this United States. Never before has there ever been a payment directly to each county. In the past, those funds went to the states, and the states disseminated those funds. But through the advocacy of National Counties Association and supervisors on this board that have called and supported the National Counties Association, we were successful, NACO was successful in delivering that. Some of our successes in the past 2 years will result in broadband being expanded for the first time in 13 years. That progress will install up to 500 miles of fiber and multiple towers, delivering broadband to the rural areas in this county that has not been seen in the past, along with an expansion of cell service. And if planned, and if as planned, there will be no cost to the taxpayers of Marathon County. Many of you may not understand this now, but believe me when I tell you there comes with this job a humility that the chair must have. I do not walk in here with wearing blue or red stripes. I have had people from both sides of the aisle speak in support of me earlier. Both of them will tell you that I have caught flack from both sides, which tells me that I'm where I need to be. Neutral, a neutral party with the best interests of the citizens of Marathon County at heart. As elected officials, we have the responsibility to check, to check our preconceived notions at the door and be open to learning and growing in ways that we may not expect today. This includes talking with and listening to people that 2 weeks ago you may not have desired to. These are the qualities of a true, humble public servant. I have witnessed many successful leaders that have exhibited these characteristics. Tonight, I humbly ask for your support as I seek the election of your chair, and I would be honored to serve you, the staff, and the residents of Marathon County. Thank you.
Thank you. Per Wisconsin statute, vote for chairperson is done by secret ballot. For those supervisors in attendance, we will pass out a blank slip of paper on which to cast your vote. Without objection, Corporation Counsel Purner and Tasha Rinaldo from administration will assist as ballot clerks to tally the votes. Once you write your vote, please fold your paper twice and return it to Tasha. For those supervisors attending virtually, Corporation Counsel Purner will contact each of you individually for your vote. During the voting process, I ask that you please keep your microphone muted and turn off your video so as to preserve the secrecy of your ballot. Corporation Counsel will submit your vote by writing it on the same ballot paper used by those supervisors present in person. Once all votes are cast, the ballot clerks will assist in tallying the votes. Each ballot clerk will independently verify the total number of votes cast for each candidate. We will hand out the ballots.
Hi, Mike Purner calling for your vote. Thank you. Supervisor Hanson, Mike Purner calling for your vote. Thank you.
All the votes are in, so we will begin the process of tallying those. So the votes have been totaled and they have been tallied by 2 people. We have Supervisor Baker with 13 votes, Supervisor Gibbs with 24 votes. Congratulations, Supervisor Gibbs. And I will now turn the meeting over to our board chair, Kurt Gibbs, to continue the meeting. Just as another note, by state statute, these ballots are kept in my office for the remainder of the term. If anyone would like to take a look at them at any time, you are more than welcome to do so.
First off, I want to sincerely say thank you. I'm humbled by the support of everyone, and those that have not supported me, I will work as hard for you as those that have. It is the will of this board that is ultimately the goal, that we work together because we all have the same purpose, and that is what's in the county's best interest of the taxpayers of Marathon County. So again, thank you, and I'm humbled. We'll move on to item B9, and that is the county board vice chair election. I will open nominations at this time for vice chair. Supervisor Mask.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to nominate Craig McEwen.
Second by Supervisor Arstead. Thank you. Is there any other nominations or any seconding speeches? Any other nominations? Okay, any other nominations? Supervisor Opal.
I move we cast a unanimous ballot for Craig McEwen for vice chair.
Motion is to close nominations and suspend the rules and cast a unanimous ballot for Craig McEwen as vice chair. Is there a second? Second by Supervisor Rosenberg. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed, say no. And the motion is carried unanimously. Congratulations, Vice Chair McEwen. Vice Chair McEwen is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to thank the entire board for giving me the opportunity to serve and work with each and every supervisor as your vice chair. The most fulfilling part of being a vice chair is I'm supposed to lead the implementation of the strategic plan and the comp plan. And that gives me the opportunity to work with each and every standing committee several times a year. And over the past 4 years, I have learned more from each and every individual on this board and on the previous boards. And I'm sure I'm going to learn a lot from the new members. And I look forward to working with each and every one of you. And again, I just want to thank you.
Okay, we will move on then, as I will allow the vice chair to take his seat, because the next presentation is by the vice chair, Mr. McEwen, Vice Chair McEwen, and that will be under ordinances that we will take action on tonight, and that will be the board rules as presented to the executive committee and forwarded to this board for its consideration. So we'll have an education presentation on the county board rules, and Vice Chair McEwen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, welcome to all the new county board supervisors and of course the returning supervisors. The next portion of the meeting, Administrator and Leonard and I are going to be reviewing Chapter 2, the governing body, which contains Section 2.01, which is the county board rules and procedures. Also, we will be touching on Sections 2.02, 2.03, 2.04, 2.06, 2.07, and a small portion of Chapter 4, which deals with position allocations. Everyone hopefully has a copy of the 67-page rules that is also on the TV monitors. The Rules Review Committee was staffed by Administrator Leonard, Corp Counsel Mike Pruner, and County Clerk Kim Trueblood and their staff. I want to thank them for the numerous hours that they put in with helping the Rules Review Committee develop the new proposed recommendations for this county board. I'd also like to thank the supervisors who were part of the Rules Review Committee with me, and they were Sandy Seiler, Rick Seefelt, Jacob Langehan, John Robinson, Brent Jacobson, and Arnie Schley, who sadly passed away. We worked on these rules for 7 months and put many hours into each meeting. The Rules Review Committee, just to give you a background on it, the Rules Review Committee was asked or tasked with reviewing the rules from last term and making any recommendations for changes. And we did get recommendations from several different areas. During the past 2 years, several supervisors had made suggestions and asked when the Rules Review Committee did form that we look at some of these rules for possible changes or revisions. And we also got recommendations from staff and from citizens, on items that they wanted the Rules Review Committee to review. The rules, like I said, are 67 pages. The changes that are highlighted in the packet were either revised, they were deleted, they were added to, but there were changes that are indicated in your packet. Now, I kind of let the board decide how they would like to review these. If you want to go through all 67 pages, we'll just get ready, but I don't think that's necessary. But if there are any particular rules or amendments or changes that you would like to propose to the board, we welcome those recommendations, and it would be considered by the entire board. And if the board so changes to make these chooses to make these recommendation changes, they would be done because these are the rules of this board. So before we go any further, are there any questions that you have of myself or Administrator Leonard?
Supervisor Lamont is recognized online.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Under Rule 1, I had a question. I understand that if at the business meeting, if someone's out of town and can't make the meeting, they can't vote. But will there still be WebEx so that I could stay up to date if I missed? And would it show if I attended, and would it be as an abstain?
That's a good question. I'll look at Corp Counsel as far as the abstaining.
Yeah. As the rules are written today, Supervisor, it is not contemplated that WebEx would be available. However, just so you're aware, all county board meetings are recorded and available for review on WebEx, and they're also televised live as the board meetings. So they would be available that way. However, they're not weren't televised, or they are not going to. As the rules are proposed, there was not going to be a WebEx offering.
Does that answer your question, Supervisor Lamont?
Yes, it does. Not in a satisfactory way, because I was wondering if I could still be present, but just not voting if I missed.
I'll have the Corp Counsel respond to the question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As the rules are currently written for business meetings that occur regularly on Tuesdays, supervisors have to be present in person to be counted as attending. There certainly is a YouTube streaming option, but that wouldn't count as attending. You would be able to watch the stream live, but not counted as attending, as the rules are currently written.
Okay. Thank you. That does help to know I can just watch it recorded. I guess I forgot about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Vice Chair McEwen? Supervisor, please hold up your name tag, please. Supervisor Marash?
Thank you, Chair Gibbs and Vice Chair McEwen. I have a question and a proposed amendment for Section 2.05, subset D, where it says membership. This is in relationship to the Board of Health. Membership, total of 9 members consisting of at least 3 of whom are not elected county officials and no less than 3 county board supervisors. I wish to amend that to 5 county board supervisors. And then when we get down to E, where it says member term, Board of Health members are appointed by the county administrator and confirmed by the Marathon County Board of Supervisors. Citizen members are appointed for a 5-year staggered term. I would like to amend that to have citizen members appointed for 2-year staggered terms as the other boards, the other committees are. The third thing I have is down in F, duties and responsibilities, where line 7 was struck out, assure accountability of the local health department. I was wondering why that was struck out, and I would prefer to have that remain in there.
Thank you. Administrator Leonard, the Board of Health appointments are made by the administrator, and I believe they're statutory, but I'm going to ask Administrator Leonard to explain that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. The Board of Health is a statutorily required committee, and I'll let Corp Counsel address that if there are further questions. With respect to the question, the direct question about number 7, I can simply indicate that the direction that staff took from the committee was to paraphrase the requirements of statute and have those drive the duties and responsibilities. So you'll see for Section 7, the language that's within the rule is assures that measures are taken to provide an environment in which individuals can be healthy, derived from Section 25104, sub 7. And that section reads as follows. A local board of health shall assure the measures are taken to provide an environment in which individuals can be healthy. So it's taken from the statute. I don't know if Corp Counsel knows off the top of his head what the composition of the committee with respect to your first proposed amendment, but as of right now, Mr. Chair, I don't believe a motion's been made on the packet of rules as a whole.
The rules have not been brought into for amendment, so we would have to have a motion to approve the full rules, then the rules would be, and seconded, and then the rules would be open for amendment. But I'll also allow Corp Counsel to address the statutory makeup of the board and the requirements in statute and what would potentially be possible in committee change in makeup.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the local Board of Health is under statute 25103. 25103 sub 1 indicates that a local Board of Health shall consist of not more than 9 members. At least 3 of the members have to be non-elected officials. So a proposed amendment which would increase the number of county board supervisors to 5 would be consistent with the statute. The statute simply requires that at least 3 members are non-elected officials or employees of the county. And because our current rule indicates that the Board of Health has 9 members, if 5 of them are county board supervisors, 4 would be non-elected. And as to the term of office, there is no requirement in 25103 of how long the non-elected or elected members of the Board of Health are members of that body. So an amendment changing the term for the non-elected members from 5 years to 2 years would also be not inconsistent with the statute.
So again, we're still in the discussion, and once we get to item 11 and there's a motion on the floor to adopt the rules, then we would be in position to accept amendments to the rules. Is there any other discussion on the rules? Supervisor Krause.
Yes, I have a question regarding.
Please use a microphone, otherwise it's not being heard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question regarding, I believe it's, if you go page 7 of 67 and page 8, where it says that at the educational and voting board meetings, that announcements must be 30 seconds or less. And I have seen that violated quite often. Some people are allowed to talk up to 2 minutes or more. And I don't think 30 seconds is enough time unless a person is a very fast talker. And I'd like to see that, I'd like to make a motion to add an amendment that be changed to 60 seconds or 1 minute.
Okay, and we're not at a point to accept any amendments because we have, but I understand the point. Any other discussion on Supervisor Van Cray?
Thank you, Chair Gibbs. I have a question about number 15, the standing committee meeting dates and times. So it spells out the times and days that these committees will meet, and I'm just curious if there was a reason that those times would need to be changed. Is that allowable since they are spelled out clearly in our rules, or would they have to meet at those times, and if a quorum couldn't be met, then the meeting would be canceled?
Again, I'll ask Corp Counsel to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in the current draft of the rule, standing committee chairs are allowed to call special meetings of the committee outside of the normal business date and time. So if the committee can't meet on a particular date as outlined in the rule, the chair can call a special meeting. These dates and times that are set forth in there, my understanding was the wishes of the Rules Review Committee was to have those as, these are the established times subject to the changes that could be proposed if needed by the chair of the standing committees. However, the Rules Review Committee was looking to have some sort of standard schedule in place as well.
One other consideration that was brought up during that time was the staffing for all of the standing committees is going to be shifting from where it currently is, in most cases, administration, to the clerk's office. And there was consideration to not have as many meetings after hours for consistency for clerk continuity, along with the consideration for the courthouse security needs and stuff as additional costs that were added when courthouse security is needed after hours.
And if I just may add one thing, also, what the Rules Review Committee discussed is we felt that if the new members or all the members knew what time and dates and days that these committees were meeting before they decided to choose a committee, it may help them decide what committees they wanted to serve on, knowing that a Thursday might not be good, or in the afternoon's not good, or early in the morning's not good. So for the convenience of the board members being able to look at the times and dates of the meetings, and like Corp Counsel said, they can vary. In fact, public safety was set at 1:30, and then it was changed to 3 o'clock so that they were just all consistent. The only other committee that meets besides not at 3 o'clock, excuse me, is the infrastructure committee, meets at 9 o'clock in the morning. So, like I said, it was also for to give the opportunity of the supervisors to look at what time these standing committees meet. Thank you.
Supervisor Carvelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you tell us what the normal staff hours are?
Normally, though, they are 8 o'clock until 4:30. That's the normal courthouse, also open hours where courthouse security is here. Any other? Supervisor Hart.
Yeah, I just had a question as a new supervisor. How were the committee schedules before? Like, how were they set beforehand?
Well, public safety was at 1:30. Infrastructure was at 9 o'clock. EEED committee was at 4, ERC was at 3, and HR Finance and Property was at 3:30 and 4 o'clock. They have two, HR Finance and Property has 2 meetings a month, and one was 3:30 and one was 4 o'clock.
Go ahead, Supervisor.
And I more meant, like, how were they scheduled beforehand like this? Like, before the entire county board met like this, where they're spelled out already?
No, this is something new. Thank you.
Supervisor Langenhan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to add on to the recent comment, Supervisor McEwen, Vice Chair McEwen, congratulations, by the way. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the way that we did the standing committee appointments before was essentially the standing committee would meet together and they would talk about what dates and times that they were available, and then it was responsibility of the chair to set that date and time. Now, one of the advantages of spelling this out in our rules is that, well, we take that process out of here and we take a little less chaos out of the meeting system or out of the committee system. So I like this because it standardizes it. I supported this in committee. I'm going to support this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And I forgot one committee, Health and Human Services, was also 3 o'clock.
Supervisor Krause.
Health and Human Services met at 4 o'clock.
Oh, that's what I meant.
Any other discussion? Any other? Supervisor Sandalski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I got a question here on public comments. It's 10A7. I would like to see the part removed where the public comments are only related to the items on the agenda, because I believe it's actually a constitution, like we took the oath to the Constitution, and it's the public's First Amendment right to speak on whatever their concerns are within the county. I guess that's all I have to say. Thank you.
I'll ask the Corp Counsel to address the concerns initially.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that comment, and under constitutional jurisprudence and research that I've done on the topic, public comment at a county board meeting, actually, we aren't required as a county board to allow public comment at all. If we do, we're creating a limited public forum for the public to participate. There can be reasonable rules that are put into place regarding that comment. There's actually a court case on point that indicates it is constitutional and in order for a county board or a governing body to put in a rule that requires comment to be germane to an agenda. But certainly the decision of whether to do that is this board's decision as to what the rule would say.
Supervisor Shavinsky.
Thank you, Chairman Gibbs. I would like to respond to the corporate counsel and with thank you for the guidance relative to statute. I think what we're advocating here is that, and part of the discussion is that while a time limit is reasonable and necessary, that we do not need to put a limitation on the actual comment content from the public, because they don't necessarily know what the agenda is going to be. That person is coming, that citizen is coming for some issue that's on his or her mind, and we would like to not see that restricted.
Supervisor Zhang.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a clarifying question here as well. Under the public comment identify information of speakers, it states that the individuals must state his or her name and the address. I guess we had a situation, if I recall from this past term, where an individual expressed that if they were homeless, what would they put down as their address here? I'm just kind of just a question about how we would clarify that as well too. Just throwing that out there as well.
Okay, I'll allow the Corp Counsel to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. the rules regarding public comment don't specify what to do in that situation. The rules do indicate previous practice had been to require the name and address be spoken aloud. This revised rule actually just requires that the name and address be presented to the clerk prior to the commencement of the meeting. So if someone were to come to the, if I was asked this question hypothetically, if someone was to come to the clerk and indicate, I don't have an address, I'm homeless, the clerk would take that information down, but I don't think it would be required that someone provide an address if they didn't have one.
Any other discussion?
As far as the questions were very good questions, and I guess as far as the public responding to the county board, I guess what we're encouraging with this is that if one of your constituents has an issue, that we would encourage them to talk to their county board supervisor. That way, the issue could be dealt with on the county board. So it's not that we're not trying to limit that they don't have a discussion or they don't have a word in anything that's going on with the county board. We're just encouraging them to contact their county board supervisors. So just a thought on that, but thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? All right, we will move on then to item number C11, and that is Chapter 2 of the General Code of Marathon County Board Rules of Procedure to include chairperson's guidelines and expectations as referenced in the county board rules. Ordinance 10-22. What is your pleasure? Motion by Supervisor Boots. Is there a second? Second by Supervisor Mask. Now, what is your pleasure? Supervisor Zhang.
Mr. Chairman, would this be an appropriate time to make an amendment to the rules and procedures?
It would.
I would make a motion to reinstate the Diversity Affairs Commission into the rules and review, to the rules and procedures.
Okay, there's a motion and a second by Supervisor Van Cray to reinstate the creation of the Diversity Affairs Commission. Is there any discussion? Supervisor Zhang.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to state that I know that there's been some concerns about the Diversity Affairs Commission, but I want to state that the Diversity Affairs Commission has, in the past, always been, and even in this past term here, has always followed along the lines that were given to us by the guidelines that was given to them by this very body here. The Diversity Affairs Commission has accomplished many of its tasks, and in the past, it was established as a result of the WASA 2000 to address the waves of incoming Hmong individuals and refugees. Throughout its existence, it addressed the domestic violence, the murder-suicide issues that developed in the early 2000s. It addressed employment, housing, interpretation. It addressed a lot of the legal problems that existed as well too, along with attempting to develop a Marathon County Leadership Coalition that would help address and retain young talent and prevent brain drain from the local community. It wanted to develop studies on the Hispanic community as well too. And with the new refugees that's coming to Marathon County here, it would be unfortunate if we would be going backwards rather than continuing forward. There's a lot of challenges that we are still facing, and we need to address those challenges. And I think having the Diversity Affairs Commission as an area where individuals from the minority population are able to express their thoughts and also share their experience would be an ideal platform for individuals to talk. If we're concerned about individuals not being non-elected officials making decisions, I do want to state that this commission here is an advisory committee and it doesn't make that decision. It's an area for individual to be able to express their concerns, have those discussions, have proper discussions, and bring their recommendation to the executive committee for discussions. And if we are concerned that there's not enough elected officials on there, well, we can always increase it and add more county board supervisors to it as well. So, I mean, the Wisconsin County Association has expressed the importance of a diversity and inclusion organizations. And in the past 2 years here, we've seen that there's counties such as Portage County, Winnebago County, establishing county diversity and inclusion committees and commissions as well. So I would strongly request and hope that this board would support that as well. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Can we get a clarification on the motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to clarify, Supervisor Zhang, the intent of your motion. Is it to reinstate the Diversity Affairs Commission under 2.05 sub 4, as well as its reporting requirement to the Executive Committee under 2.04 sub 3G?
Yes,
Okay.
that is correct.
Thank you.
Okay, Supervisor Krause.
Thank you, Chair Gibbs. I am not on the Diversity Commission. I am a board member, and I did attend about, I'd say maybe 5 or 6 of their meetings. Just because I am an older person, a female, and disabled, and I brought up some issues at that meeting, and I've noticed when I attended the meeting that there were many very good issues and discussions that they had. Lance Leonard attended the meetings and made some very good suggestions. And they were looking over the employment rules for Marathon County and updating them. They added a lot of very, very good ideas. So I think it's a valuable committee. Our population, minority population, is growing, and women are being more aggressive and taking part in society more than ever before. And we have an influx of minorities now in this area. And I think this county or city has decided to have minorities come in through refugees, immigrants, and I think we should meet with them and talk with them. If this committee or commission is stopped, I think we will go backwards, because anytime you do not bring these issues up into the public's ears and eyes, that they are forgotten about. They are discarded and ignored. So I think this commission serves a purpose, and I'd like to see it continue. Thank you.
Supervisor Shafinsky.
Okay, one of the reasons that we had such a turnover on the county board over the last 2 years is the fact that the county board spent much of its time not actually addressing the business of running the county. And in turn, I'm going to focus right on the Diversity and Affairs Commission committee. A lot of, if I look back at what went through the community with that, that was a source of incredible division, an incredible amount of anxiety, an incredible amount of hot air. And really, it moves away from the purpose of running the county. Now, you can talk about diversity and inclusion, and that's kind of, back to the motherhood and apple pie. How can you say that's a bad thing? Well, the point is, the way you deal with people, Martin Luther King had it right. You deal with people based on the content of their character. And the people that were voted in as supervisors, the reason that there was a turnover that there was is that it was felt by the voters that this board was not focusing on dealing with the county's business, but was rather pushing a very hard left Marxist agenda on the county, which is not desired by the population of this county. That's why we had the turnover that we have on the board. So I think that, far from going backwards, the way that you go forwards is you deal with people as individuals. And if you deal with people as individuals, and you deal with people as you would like to be dealt with, the golden rule, treat others as you would like to be treated, there's no purpose behind this except to push an ideological agenda. Wrap it in pretty words, but it's really pushing an agenda that does not need to exist. And this does not actually do the county's business.
Any other discussion? I would also inform all county board supervisors to please direct all comments to the chair. Supervisor Van Cray, please.
Thank you, Chair Gibbs. Let's talk about the business of the county is to make Marathon County the most prosperous county in the state. We, those of us who are returning, heard from many people over the past term about their dissatisfaction of the diversity and inclusion shown in our county by our county leadership and our citizens here, to the point where people emailed us letting us know that they previously stopped in this area on their way up north while they were traveling to enjoy our restaurants and our parks and the things that they had to do here, sometimes even making it a destination. And one person in particular said that they would no longer be making this area a destination and they would be going to Stevens Point instead. So I believe that we should keep the Diversity Affairs Commission to further economically make our county diverse and inclusive because we want to be the most prosperous county in the state. I don't want to help Portage County do that. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? Vice Chair McEwen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate all the comments, both and for the Diversity Affairs Commission. When Rules Review discussed it, it was quite a lengthy discussion. And to be honest, I did receive from many of my constituents complaints about non-elected officials and making or proposing policies. Whether that's true or not, I'm not going to debate that, but I did hear that complaint. After discussing for quite a while the mission of and purpose of the Diversity Affairs Commission, it was brought up by one of the supervisors that he felt that the role of the Diversity Affairs Commission should be rolled in to the entire board. The county board should be discussing that. So what was proposed, there was under the responsibilities of each standing committee, there is a discussion of diversity and inclusion. And I thought that was a great idea. I hadn't thought of that at the time because I do believe that to get things accomplished, I think the whole county board has to be involved in it, and each issue would be as far as diversity and inclusion would be towards that committee's responsibility. So we're not saying we don't want these discussions. We think they're important, but it should be by the entire county board. And the executive committee, their duty in that is to make sure that the committee chairs on each of these standing committees are from time to time reviewing these issues. So we're not trying to not have these discussions. We just felt it would be more beneficial if the entire board was involved. Thank you.
Supervisor Gisselman, next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Zong, for bringing this before the county board this evening. I support the resolution to bring this, the Diversity Affairs Committee back into the rules. I feel that this is the one committee that really reaches to all the people of Marathon County. We can talk about political agendas and we can talk about a variety of other things, but this is really a committee that focuses on treating everybody equally well. Martin Luther King, in his beloved community, speaks very well about how we treat each other and how we live amongst each other. And I think that this is one committee that sort of focuses that out amongst all the committees within Marathon County. If we take a look within the Chamber of Commerce, has recently initiated a mosaic program within Marathon County to be looking at the diversity makeup of this county. I'm sure mostly as an economic issue, but it speaks to the fact that the diversity element within our community, within our county, is an important enough that other agencies, other community agencies are getting involved. And I think that as this county board, this board that reaches throughout the county, I think that we have an obligation to reinstate the Diversity Affairs Commission to take care of our people and to make sure all the people in this county are heard. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Boots,
Call the question.
is there any objection? I have one additional speaker on the list, and that is Supervisor Robinson. Supervisor Krause, are you objecting to the question being called?
Yes.
There's an objection. Is there a second to question being called? Is there a second to the question being called? That dies for a lack of second. We will continue. Supervisor Robinson is next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is an issue that I'm torn on because I support the goals and the mission of the Diversity Affairs Commission in trying to enhance inclusionary policies and develop those into or expand our diversity. But the fact of the matter is that the commission was perceived to be broken by this board. And I think, unfortunately, when a recommendation comes from that commission, with this board, it's probably dead on arrival, irrespective of the merits of it. And I think we need to look at, as elected officials, what is our role and our responsibility to deal with diversity and inclusion. And these rules spell out for each of the standing committees those responsibilities. And I think they're policy issues. We need to own them. We need to advocate for them. We need to articulate them. We need to engage the public in them. With or without a Diversity Affairs Commission, there are opportunities to go out to the public and engage them. We've done that last year with the County Board Size Task Force. We did that with the HR Finance Property Committee on the use of the ARPA dollars. We need to probably do a better job of going out to the public, whether it's Hatley, Edgar, or wherever, and engage them in those discussions in the development of the policy. Unfortunately, my fear is that anything that has the stamp of the Diversity Affairs Commission on it right now would be dead on arrival. And I think we have to figure out, how do we engage in a discussion on those critical issues of making people feel welcome in this community. I think we have to rethink how we do that.
Any other discussion? Supervisor Krause.
Thank you, Chair Gibbs.
But there was an objection and there was no second to the question being called.
So what I'm thinking would be good is to have the Diversity Affairs Commission and the standing committees implement a welcoming attitude towards everyone in this community. I'd like to see both. Thank you.
Supervisor Dickinson.
I'd like to call the question.
Is there any objection to the question being called? There was no objection. Debate is ended. Nobody else was in the queue. We will proceed to vote. The motion is to reinstate the Diversity Affairs Commission as it was stated in the previous set of rules for 2020 through 2022. Any understanding? Is there any misunderstanding? Everybody knows a positive vote will reinstate the commission. A negative vote will keep the rules as presented. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, say no.
No.
No. The motion is defeated. Yeah, and we will move on. Any other discussion? Supervisor Dickinson.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the rules related to the duties and responsibilities of diversity and inclusivity. I had shared some information with Corp Counsel Perner, which he can share. I've also shared those with two other supervisors, Supervisor Boots and Supervisor Robinson. In light of the discussion and the motion that just failed, the duties and responsibilities.
Please put those that attend, please put by WebEx, please put that on mute. Or by phone, please put that on mute. Thank you.
So the duties and responsibilities that are presented under diversity and inclusivity for each of the standing committees, all 7 of them, what I am proposing are these smaller texts related to those that eliminates some kind of duplicate language, removes items like the name of the committee and that sort of thing. So as you can see here for economic development, the change would be promote goals that every person has the opportunity for education and for employment to be self-supporting, as opposed to what is stated there now, which is maybe twice as long. I don't have it in front of me. So the mindset, all of these duties and responsibilities that are listed are brief. I would see no reason why one particular kind of thought process would extend and have longer text for that. So that's what I'm proposing here. I can read all of them if you like.
No, I would ask, is there a second? Seconded by Supervisor Hardinger, sorry. Okay, any further discussion? Supervisor Langenhan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, is it possible for the Corporation Counsel or another member of staff to email these amendments out to the group? I have not had a chance to review these.
They will be emailed out. But I would invite Supervisor Dickinson just to read the brief changes that he's proposing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So item under Rule 2, 1F9, for economic development and extension, it would state promote goals that every person has the opportunity for education and for employment to be self-supporting. For the ERC under 2F14, evaluate conservation, land use, planning, zoning, and recreation programs and policies to reduce, eliminate disparities and access where they may exist. Under 3F15 for executive, evaluate the work of the standing committees and provide leadership relative to the diversity and inclusion responsibilities set forth within the organizational rules, ensuring Marathon County is an open, inclusive, and diverse place to live and work. Under 4F17, human resources, finance, and property, promote cultural competence in county employment policies. And I would add, and in the design and delivery of county programs and services. Under 5F14 for health and human services, promote health equity to reduce, eliminate health and social disparities where they may exist. Under infrastructure for 6F 2021, I would eliminate both of those and just write evaluate transportation, highways, broadband, and other services, facilities to reduce, eliminate disparities and access where they may exist. And for public safety under 7F9, evaluate programs and services to foster the fair and impartial administration of justice. So the text that I have is just reduced text from what had existed that came out of the executive committee.
Supervisor Dickinson, could you repeat the one that you had in addition to, so I can get that text captured?
For human resources, finance, property, after policies, it would state, and in the design and delivery of county programs and services.
Thank you. Supervisor Langenhan.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to change my request. If possibly, Corporation Counsel could provide the language that Supervisor Dickinson provided as well as the update that he provided, provide that on a printout to all the county board members here. Some people might not have their laptops or whatever, or iPads, I should say. Having a hard copy of that would be great. Thank you.
All right. We'll work out that technology. We got to work out how we write over a PDF and have that be able to be printed and then provided. Supervisor Zhang?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to get the input of the Rules and Review Committee members, on, because I know they're the ones that came up with the original language in the document here. Get their thoughts on the proposed changes by Supervisor Dickinson. Thank you.
First, I would ask Supervisor Robinson. He worked very closely, or Vice Chair McEwen. Vice Chair McEwen first.
Thank you. The language actually was developed by Supervisor Robinson and Administrator Leonard, and then brought back to the Rules Review Committee for consideration. And like I said, what we were trying to emphasize that each standing committee had a different policy as far as, or obligation to make sure that inclusion and equity, inclusion and, forgot the other one, diversity was included in their standing committee rules. So it was kind of designed for all the standing committees with some different wording that was in it. And Supervisor Dickinson is just trying to summarize it so that it's not as long, I guess. But I don't know, Supervisor Robinson, if you had any aspect, I know you had input in that, so.
Supervisor Robinson is next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I saw these tonight, so I've not had a chance to fully digest them, but I think in concept, the concept is okay, because we are, instead of having that diversity, last week we changed it from a separate standalone provision and put it into the responsibilities of the committee, which I think is a good move. I think this captures the essence of what we were trying to look for. The critical issue will be, what will the chair, vice chair, and members of each of the committees do with them, but it gets at the issues of fairness and equity. It builds upon some of the work that we're doing with the university program, which I would hope that the administrator would give an overview of relative to, for instance, in the law enforcement and justice system, the issue of cash versus signature bonds. Is that fair? Are there disproportionate impacts relative to certain populations? Because of how we handle that. And we've talked about improving access to broadband, transportation services, and others. Again, looking at that issue of being more diverse and inclusive. The amendment that he added was just my first cut on, it's not only the human resources policies and how we go about hiring, but how we spend our dollars and how we prioritize those. And that was therefore the design of programs and how we spend dollars. So I think that's critical to have that language in there. Again, we can argue over the semantics of what's in and what's out, but it's really the will of the board and the will of the members to take this responsibility seriously and to work on those policy issues and advance those recommendations and engage the public in them. And I think that this captures the intent.
Supervisor Boots was next.
I want some clarification, I guess. So if you go through our current rules, Supervisor Dickinson did give me this handout, so I've had time to look through it. But did we not, in the executive committee, take out basically all the Cs, like 204, 4C, 5C? We removed them, didn't we, and put that into the? Did we not remove those in executive committee? That's my first question.
Corp Counsel will answer.
My understanding of the executive committee's action is that subsection C was removed and that those statements were inserted later on in the same portion of the rule under the duties and responsibilities of the standing committee.
All right. And okay, then on a second note, I have had a chance to look through these. As Supervisor Dickinson said, he did give me a copy, and I don't see an issue with any of these, so I will be voting in favor of the amendment.
We got Supervisor Shafinsky next, and then Supervisor Zhang.
Thank you. As I listen to all of our discussion back and forth, and it's really good, and I've lived here my entire life, so I've watched the influx of the Hmong community and, how do I want to put this, the richness that they've added to our community. So I've watched how our community has changed over the last 30 or 40 years. And what strikes me is that all of the discussion about diversity, inclusion, and equity ends up splitting people into groups rather than treating everyone as a citizen of Marathon County, we're splitting people into groups, and we're starting to pit those groups against each other rather than dealing with each individual citizen and all citizens as equal citizens of Marathon County. And everything that we do ought to be done as we look at how does it affect and how does it improve the life of everyone in Marathon County. Not this group, not that group, not another group, but all the citizens of Marathon County. So that's why I would oppose all of this language.
Supervisor Zhang.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do want to acknowledge and thank Supervisor Dickinson for his efforts as well. But I do want to express caution as well too, because one of the reasons why the Diversity Affairs Commission before had a lot of challenges was because of how broad the charter was for the Diversity Affairs Commission. I'm concerned that with the shortening of the language here, there's a lot of broad assumptions that could come with it as well. So I do want to just caution this board for them to also look at the language and make a decision based off that. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? Supervisor Krause.
Thank you, Chair Gibbs. I would like to mention that it's the laws of the land that have given opportunities to minorities and women. And the reason it was made into law is because individuals do not treat everyone equally or fairly, whether it's because of their religion, their color, the ethnic group, their sex, gender identity, or whatever. That's why we have federal and state laws for equal opportunity for employment of women that weren't employed before, and many other minorities. We have laws, and maybe you individually don't think we need these laws, but they made a big difference in my life, and they probably made a big difference in a lot of other people's lives. These are our civil rights laws. These are our equal opportunity laws, and that's why we have them. Some of you may not like those laws, and some of you may think we don't need those laws, but we do. We have them. We have attorneys who back up all of this equal opportunity and equal rights for minorities. Thank you.
Supervisor Lamont.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just wondering is there any wisdom to tabling this, or can we even do that? Because I'm looking at this on the WebEx. I do not have access to the changes that have been suggested, and I'm just going by what people are saying. And it sounds like we're going to have some more changes coming up. So is there, I'm not sure on the rules. Can we do this next week? Yes, clarification. Thank you.
I'll have Corp Counsel address that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So at this point, what the body is doing is considering what rules to adopt for this session. Only at the organizational meeting, which is today's meeting, can the body vote by majority vote to adopt rules. After today, whatever set of rules are adopted, they can only be modified, changed, altered by a 2/3 majority vote. So tabling the rules would leave us without any county board rules. It would also be contrary to our existing ordinance, which requires us to adopt our rules at the organizational meeting.
Okay, thank you. I thought so, but I just wanted to ask.
Any other discussion? Okay, any other discussion? Everybody ready to vote? Oh, we're still getting copies. I'm sorry. Supervisor Krause.
Thank you, Chair Gibbs. I wanted to move to make a motion to amend this 30-second announcement.
We've got a motion. Supervisor Krause, that would be out of order right now. We have a motion on the table unless your motion is to amend a portion of the rule that's being amended. a second motion to amend a different portion of the rule would not be in order at this point. But we'll be requesting any additional amendments as soon as this amendment is taken care of. Any other discussion? Supervisor Shafinsky, third time.
I just would like to address the comment relative to state and federal law, and my comment earlier.
Well, again, we're talking right now. We have on the table an amendment that we're discussing.
Correct.
So we will.
But one of the supervisors made reference to state and federal law, and that's my point here, is that perhaps all of these questions are best left to state and federal law, and perhaps they're not really pertinent to the business of running the county. Not in any way impugning those laws or in suggesting that we should change those, not one bit. I'm just suggesting that perhaps this is outside of our purview as a county board.
Thank you. Supervisor Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The purpose of these clarifying roles and responsibilities is to guide the activities of the committees. And many of the recommendations are based upon the county's comprehensive plan that we adopted in 2016. There's a visionary document on where we want to be as a county in terms of the safest, healthiest, and most prosperous county. And you get that way by putting those and spelling out those responsibilities and holding people accountable. It's important that we do this, include those in our rules, and do the periodic check-ins to see how we're doing it. This is aimed at the policies and practices of the county as it relates to these activities. It is important that we reflect those in our rules, and that's why it's before us today.
Okay, we also have emailed that to all of the supervisors that are attending by WebEx, the amendments. Is there any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion is to amend to include the new description under each of the appropriate standing committees as spelled out. A motion in favor will adopt. A motion or a vote in favor will adopt, and a vote against will put us back to what was proposed by the executive committee. So, all those in favor of the motion to adopt the proposed changes that were offered by Supervisor Dickinson and presented to you in replacing the changes that were offered by the executive committee? All those in favor of that motion, Supervisor Hardinger.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. Just for clarification, we're talking about just what Supervisor Dickinson recommended and nothing else.
Correct.
Okay, because there was Supervisor Maresh did have a couple of, she had a couple of notes that she wanted to add to the rules, and when we were discussing it before it got to this state.
Right. We are not done potentially amending the rules. This is just one more.
I just wanted to make sure it was
step in the process.
Just that. Okay. There's a lot of pages here. Okay.
Just one step in the process.
Thank you.
So again, we are at a point of a vote to approve. We'll adopt the changes that Supervisor Dickinson has presented and replace those in the rules that were adopted by the executive committee and forwarded to this board. And the Corp Council will address also.
I just wanted to clarify one thing. I think the document that you have has multiple pages to it. The first 2 pages are the diversity and inclusivity proposed changes relative to this vote. The remaining pages were also items proposed by Supervisor Dickinson.
But they are not in the motion.
On right now.
Those are not in the motion.
So that might clarify your question.
I apologize. So again, the motion only refers to the items that relate to the diversity goals on the standing committees. Everybody clear? All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
No.
The motion is carried, and we will now take up any additional motions to amend. Supervisor Krause, you wanted to amend the time for public announcements.
Yes, Rule 10, county board meetings for the Tuesday and Thursday meetings, board meetings. I move to make a motion to amend the 30-second announcements and requests at the end of the educational and voting board meetings to be changed from 30 seconds to 1 minute.
Is there a second? There's seconded by Supervisor Straczynski. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Supervisor Dickinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the other document that I passed out, that was passed out, I was going to bring up something about that as well, but not in reference to the 30 seconds. So I'm just going to comment just on the 30 or 60 seconds. Announcements and requests should be about announcements and requests. Shouldn't have anything to do with anything else. No agenda items, no proselytizing, no, hey, I'm running for some other position, anything like that. And so therefore, announcements and requests should be straight to the point. Hey, my township is doing this. Hey, on the next agenda, can we add that item? So I would be opposed to extending that to 60 seconds.
Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Seeing none, a motion in the affirmative will change the announcement period from 30 seconds to 60 seconds. All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? No.
No.
And the motion is defeated. Okay, other, Supervisor Dickinson.
So since we're talking about this one, on that item, I did have some text to add to that I thought would be helpful. You can see on that second page, it says add, and it would state announcements and requests shall be limited to non-agenda items not previously discussed during the meeting and should not be utilized to further discuss or debate an item from the agenda. And additionally, any privilege given by the chair to extend a supervisor's time shall apply to any other supervisors who comment. So if one supervisor is given 60 seconds, then the other supervisors who speak get 60 seconds. So I'd be making a motion to amend that item.
Is there a second? Is there a second? Seconded by Supervisor Hardinger. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, say no. No. And the motion is carried. Any other discussion? Supervisor Crivelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This pertains to Rule 15 on page 12. Looking at the statement, I believe that Supervisor Van Cray, is it, had said earlier about the times listed in that rule. The shall statements in there, and myself as an auditor, those shall statements are a must statement. I'm not sure how they work at this level. I would rather see that as a should statement, saying that it could be changed. Because right now I don't see anything where it says that the chairperson can make changes to those times.
Is that a motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion.
And would that be effective for all the standing committees?
Correct.
Okay, so the motion is to substitute where the appointment, or the meeting times are shall to should. Is it clear to everyone? Is there a second? Second by Supervisor Rosenberg. Supervisor Boots.
This was brought up in the executive committee, and I was the one that actually brought forward what Ron was talking about, because I was public safety chair. It was 1:30, moved to 3. What we discussed at the at executive was, let's say I have a 7-person committee and I'm at public safety, and we decide as a standing committee that we'd like to go to 1:30 again, and it works with staff. We would then, as a 7-person board, bring that forward to the county board, and as it was discussed in the executive committee, if we all want to do that, I'm very certain that we'd get the 2/3 majority to change that meeting time, and we could change the rules that way. That was just something I'd like to point out, I guess.
Supervisor Zhang?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just want a clarification here. If we did change it to should, it was to be changed, would that be at the discretion of the chair of the committee, or would that be a collective decision by the standing committee? Just wanted clarification so we have a better understanding.
Corp Counsel, I'll let him address that one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Supervisor Zhang, as to that question, because the rule or the proposed change doesn't spell that out, it would be subject to interpretation. My interpretation would be that the committee chair would have the discretion, but that's my interpretation off the top of my head right now. I haven't thought about it more than in responding to your question, but that would be I believe what my interpretation would be.
Thank you.
Is there any other discussion? Again, I think the reason that the rules put in there that they shall meet is, again, to accommodate staff and ultimately have to have a discussion with each and every member of the committee and bring back to the full board its choice of time. And if that committee is fully supported and it does not interfere with staff, there's no reason why this board would not support that change. Any other discussion? Supervisor Marash?
Thank you, Chair Gibbs. Is this an appropriate time to bring forward my motion for an amendment? Are we still discussing Supervisor Cavalli's? I'm sorry, I was
We're still have on the table
Okay,
Supervisor
sorry,
Cavalli's motion to change shall to should, and that has a second. Supervisor Langenhan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I'm going to support the original rule language of shall rather than should, only because if you change it to should, I feel that we start to deviate away from what the intent of the Rules Review Committee's mission was, which was to standardize these times. As other members had mentioned on the board, there's already a process in place where it could be brought up to the full board to amend the rules to a different time if everybody's schedules did not meet that time that was spelled out within the rules. That being said, I think that we need to be firm first before letting this be guidelines, because of course we want to be respectful to our staff and their time. I would urge you all to support the original language. Thank you for your time, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Okay, the motion is to change each of the standing committees, instead of shall meet at 3 p.m. or the appropriate time of each of the committees, to should. All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed to that, say no. 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 I would ask the clerk to call the roll.
Arstead. No. Baker. Yes. Boots. No. Book.
No.
Cavelli.
Yes.
Dickinson.
No.
Drabeck.
No.
Gibbs.
No.
Gisselman.
No.
Gonnering.
No.
Hart.
Aye.
Hardinger.
No.
Krause.
No.
Lamont.
No.
Langenhan.
No.
Lemmer. Marshall.
Yes. Yes.
Mask.
No.
McEwen.
No.
Morash.
No.
Niemeyer.
No.
Oberbeck.
No.
Opal.
No.
Ritter.
No.
Robinson.
No.
Rosenberg.
Yes.
Seafelt.
No.
Soibert.
No.
Sherfinsky.
Yes.
Sundelsky.
Yes.
Straub.
Yes.
Ungerer.
No.
Van Cray.
Yes.
Vensky.
Yes.
Wilhelm.
Yes.
Zhang.
Yes.
Thank you. One moment.
And the motion is defeated 24-12. Moving on. Supervisor Marash, you had a motion to amend.
Thank you, Chair Gibbs. So going back to section 2.05, County Statutory Program Joint Committees and Task Forces, I'd like to make a motion for D, membership, total of 9 members consisting of at least 3 of whom are not elected county officials, and no less than, I'd like to amend that to 5 county board supervisors. Do we need to do them each individually, or can we do them all 3 at once?
I would say it's up to the will of the board. If the board is, I guess what I would say is make your motion. If the board is confused, we can always divide the question.
Then on to E, member term. Board of Health members are appointed by the county administrator and confirmed by the Marathon County Board of Supervisors. Citizen members are appointed for 5-year staggered terms. I would like to amend that to 2-year staggered terms.
And any addition?
That would
That would
finish that off. Thank you.
That would take care of it. So we're moving from, we will have 3 non-elected and 5 elected?
Correct.
And the terms for the non-elected would be 2-year.
Correct.
terms. Okay. Is there a second? Seconded by Sandalski. Any discussion? Supervisor Robinson?
Mr. Chair, I rise to oppose the amendment. Currently, we have a 9-member board. There are 2 physicians on that board. There is a retired executive from Aspirus who has a strong public health background. We have a community member that has strong ties to the Hispanic community, and we have a healthcare provider with an advanced degree representing the Hmong community, and then somebody from Aspirus that works with us on the community, community health improvement program. And that involvement is critical when we start looking at issues such as behavioral health, and it's expertise that we get that really helps drive the performance. And I know that there's a lot of concern over what happened with COVID. There has not been any policy issues relative to COVID on the agenda for a while. I think we're trying to look at those other issues, behavioral health and others, and I think that having that strong representation from the community helps us get at that. And when it comes to an ordinance that needs to come back through the Health and Human Services Committee into this body, so there is adequate opportunity for later involvement in those activities. So I would encourage you to stay with the status quo and oppose the amendment.
Any further discussion? Supervisor Langenhan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to ask for some clarity on the motion, and then I may have a follow-up. So The way I understand this is that the composition of the Board of Health would go from 9 members total to 8 members total.
That is what my understanding is correct.
Okay. And of course, if there was any clarification, I'd invite the other supervisor who made the motion to, of course, provide that clarity. There's something for Corp Counsel to add?
No, I was clarifying whether the statute required 9.
Okay. So we're going from 9 to 8. And then for the non-elected members, we're going from 5 years staggered to 2 year staggered terms?
Correct.
Those are the 2 changes. So, Mr. Chair, with respect to the amendments, I just would say that I'd like more rationale behind these changes. A little lesson to the new county board members that we have here with these amendments and proposing these substantive changes. You're going to learn very shortly that we have committee systems that have worked very well here for a long time. The committee systems review this information beforehand so that we do not have all of these discussions at the full 38-member board. It allows us to work very efficiently. So now that we have changes here going into the new term, now we have to ask for more information. So as I said, Mr. Chair, I'd ask for more information on these amendments. Thank you.
Okay. If the supervisor would like to provide any additional comment.
My comment on this is that being a citizen, having attended each health board meeting for the last 9 months and hearing the commentary from one of the doctors in particular really gave me a lot of concern month after month. And therefore, I felt that it would be better served for our community to have 2-year terms for these people, just in case they don't serve the community to the best of their ability. That's the reason for it.
Okay, any further discussion? Supervisor Lamont and then Supervisor Krause.
These out for 2 different votes because I'm in favor of one and not another.
You can ask for division.
Division.
Okay.
Thank you.
The motion will be divided in, if it is agreeable to the second, the motion will be divided into 2 parts. And the 2 parts will be, the first part that we will take up is the 3 non-elected and 5 county board members. And then we will take up the second, and that is the reduction in the term staggered for the 3 non-elected to. Is there a second to divide, I should say first? There is a second by Supervisor Zhang to divide. So again, that will be if that is amicable to Supervisor Lamont, is that division
Yes.
the line you wanted? All right.
Yes.
And is that division okay with the motion maker?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Okay, Supervisor Marshall.
Thank you, Chairman. I think that one of the important things that we have learned over the last 2 years is that the public really wants elected officials to make up the majority of our boards. And so I support the amendment to add 5 supervisors and 3 non-elected members.
Any further discussion? Supervisor Sherfinsky.
I think Supervisor Marshall makes a very good point relative to the last couple of years. We've had a lot of division with experts on one side, public officials on another side. We here as supervisors, I think, owe it to our citizens to make decisions based on people who are elected rather than non-elected people.
Supervisor Krause.
Thank you, Chair. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought there was a state statute that said the members of the board, of the health board, so many members must be from the medical field. In fact, at one time, this Marathon County Health Board wanted a veterinarian on the board, wanted a dentist on the board, and the rules, the laws were, and our local requirements were changed to be in line with the state laws, which did not allow a dentist, did not require a dentist to be on the health board. So they eliminated having a dentist on the health board. So I just thought it was a state law that said how many medical people must be on the health board. Thank you.
I would ask the Corp Council to provide clarity as to what the state statute requires and what the state statute does not require.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I would note, in the existing ordinance, even after, if this amendment was approved, it does indicate that the membership composition, it will be in keeping with 25103, that's the state statute that governs the local Board of Health. What the local Board of Health says on this topic, or what the statute says on this topic, is in appointing the members who are not elected officials or employees, a good faith effort shall be made to appoint a registered nurse and a physician, except if that the appointing authority is unable to locate a willing registered nurse, physician, or both, it shall make a good faith effort to appoint a physician assistant, advanced practice registered nurse, or both. So it's not a hard and fast requirement, but it is a requirement under state statute that a good faith effort be made to appoint those types of non-elected members.
Okay. Any further discussion? Supervisor Langenhan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Two questions, and I just want to confirm, I think Corporation Council just answered this question, but the proposed amendment is consistent with the statute.
Yes.
Thank you. Second question, in regards to the staggered terms, we're already in the midst of the staggering of the terms. So what happens if we switch it from 5 to 2? Does that get reset to 0, or how does the appointment system change then? You're welcome, by the way.
Thank you for the question.
I had not considered that question. I'm going to consider it right now, silently in my seat. One moment.
Supervisor Boots.
Call the question.
Question is called. Is there an objection? Supervisor Baker is objecting to the question being called.
Question procedure. I'm not objecting to the question being called. I'm asking for a roll
Please,
call.
please use the mic.
I'm asking for a roll call vote. I'm not objecting to the question.
Okay, roll call vote has been requested. Is there any objection to the motion of the previous question being called?
Just a point of order and a clarification here. Is Supervisor Baker asking for a roll call vote of the calling of the question, or the amendment itself? Just wanted to clarify that so I have a better understanding.
I'm understanding it. The roll call is requested on the motion and not the motion to amend and not the motion for the call of question. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So any further?
Chairman Gibbs, one question, and that would be, we have a determination that needs to be made by the corporate council, so is calling the question premature, since we do not have an answer on his guidance.
He is prepared to provide an answer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did consider this silently to myself. Because our Board of Health is constituted by our ordinance and by our rules, if the ordinance itself is changed and the terms are reduced from 5 years to 2 years, any existing terms